ask me, what is it, how, when they want to know, how do you feel, how you really feel, I'll say, well, there are a lot of days I really feel like I'm lost. I mean, I've always been, Hansel and Kim. I've always been and Kim. I mean, and now it's just Kim. So yes, thank you for saying that, because time doesn't heal if you don't work at it. You have to work work through grief.
I want to start off by introducing Jason. I have this, there might be some glare, but let me see if I can get this in here. This is Jason Beique. This was my husband of 25 years. This was a photo that we took with us to his homegoing celebration. And this man was funny and handsome and witty, just an all-around great guy. And Hansel was also an all-around great guy. And so, Kim, if you'd introduce us to Hansel.
Okay. So I wish I had a larger than life picture of Hansel like that. I need to work on that. Right. So here is one of Hansel's favorite pictures, or this was. This is Hansel and our three girls. This is the first time we met them. They're adopted. And so this was actually on a Father's Day.
Beautiful.
And this is us again at the courthouse. It's about, really almost a year later at that point when we were adopted. And so here's the three girls. And this is Josh, my nephew, our other connection. Our other connection.
Right.
And this is me, and this is not Hansel, but I'm showing it anyway. This is me and the girls last summer at the beach. So here we are grown up. So,
beautiful.
There we are. And so he had prostate cancer, and it was super aggressive. Like, they rated on a scale of 1 to 10, and his was a 10. And we went to some really specialty treatment centers, places that just treated prostate cancer, and he was the only 10 we ever met.
Wow.
So yeah. So anyway, but we really believe the Lord was going to heal him, and for a season he was,
because like we said earlier, we're Christians first. And when we get in our word as believers, the instructions that we get there, it's for all of the seasons of our life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think like you, I remember the first time I went to the hardware store to buy a weed whacker. Jason died in the summer, and the weeds were really out of control. And I went into, I got to keep myself busy mode. And I went to buy a weed whacker, and I stood in the aisle with all the weed whackers there, and my mom was with me, and I just looked at all the weed whackers, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Right.
I don't know what any of these things do different than the other. Like, I might as well be in a foreign land. I have no idea what to buy. Mm-hmm. And I just cried in the aisle. And then one of the workers was coming, and I was like, hey, help me. Like, tell me what all of this is. Like, and then at the end of it, I did buy a weed whacker that I thought would work for me. Like, what kind of weed whacker is going to work for me to use it and my boys? Like, I'm going to put my boys to work, so they have to know how to operate it. And you begin to recalibrate your thinking that the decisions that you are now making have to work for where God has you in this moment, in this season for your life. And it really just takes some retraining of your brain to think, what is going to work for me? We have a question from Ibarra. She says, Kim, what resources or practices did you use to find comfort or help for yourself in the midst of holding it down for your young girls? What did you do for you?
I will tell you, there were a few things, and the one thing was counseling, and then my counselor moved, so I felt so comfortable going with that person. And the other thing was, I joined a Facebook group for widows, and I met a friend there who's actually in the Nashville area. And she does Grief Share. And I don't know if you've heard of Grief Share. It's a particular program, but the thing is counseling. But the Grief Share was very helpful for me. I've been through, I've missed some, but I've been through it a few times. And they still do things. They're doing a lot now, even online. It's through church, and it's a Christian-based organization. And it really is just, I think it's 10 or 12 weeks. I don't know how many weeks it is, but it's really just a way for you to help you walk through the grief. It's full of Bible verses. It's full of ideas like journaling. That's one of the things that I started doing. Is I got an app because I didn't want to just have stuff laying around the house, a notebook or whatever. So I got a journal app that, uses Face ID. And sometimes I go back and look at the things that I wrote at the beginning. And a lot of my first posts I wrote were really more like me talking to Hansel. And they were prayers, but there was a lot of me, talking to Hansel. And I think as time passed by, I could see that occasionally I might say something on a big day. But a lot of more of it is just me like talking out my prayers onto there on the app. And so I think that was really helpful for me because now I can look back and say, oh, wow, look how far I've come. I read a couple of books. One of them is I told you I had visual aids, right? This book right here. I know we don't work for this company. We don't get anything for this, right? It's called When Heaven is Silent by Ron Dunn.
When Heaven is Silent. Awesome.
When Heaven is Silent by Ron Dunn. And this is not about the loss of a spouse. Ron Dunn he has passed away, but he was an evangelist. His son committed suicide.
Oh.
And as you might imagine, that comes with a whole nother, that's a whole nother episode, I guess, for that, but he talks about dealing with when you feel as though you've been praying for something and you feel like heaven was silent. And it's just still about grief and grieving. And another book, believe it or not, that I read was C.S. Lewis, A Grief Observed, I think is what it's called. And it's a book about grief. And I'll tell you, I read that early on, and it's a small little book, and it's really a collection of his journaling about when he lost his wife. And I think about, okay, this is C.S. Lewis, and this man was, so profound in so many ways, and such a Bible scholar. And to see what he poured his heart out, how he poured his heart out, and that some of the things that he was feeling were the same things that I was feeling. And I thought, well, hey, maybe I'm not so wrong in this area. And so I think, that was really helpful too. Those books, the Grief Share classes, just spending a lot of time just reading a word, writing. I still have, I put some of my sticky notes here, writing verses down, putting them on sticky notes, putting them on my mirrors in my bathroom or just different places. In Jeremiah, I got a few that I would read. Jeremiah 29:13. I use the New Living Translation a lot. It says, if you look for me wholeheartedly, you will find me. I think the normal one, if you seek me, you will, with all your heart, you will find me. Isaiah 45, I think it's 43, 45. When you go through deep waters, I will be with you. When you go through the rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned up. I just wrote down a lot of verses when I was in a really bad place that I could look at.
Healing seems like you didn't allow for time lapse to take care of your healing under the saying of time heals. Oh, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
Well, I mean, it's been a while for me, so I might have drug on the front end, but not really. I think it's not the time. Time doesn't heal, in fact, because I mean, I think gosh, Andi, it's been so, you still have you still have all your anniversaries to go through, but you're in such a strong place. You're in such a strong place right now, that I feel good. I feel good about it for you because you are in a strong place. But sometimes time can be your enemy, I think, because time, if you don't move through it, you'll be stuck.
Okay.
And it's something that you really, looking back at, I was never in a position where I was like obsessed with it, stuck, but I feel like I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to not be lost. It's like one of the things that people ask me, what is it, when they want to know, how do you feel, how you really feel? I'll say, well, there are a lot of days I really feel like I'm lost. I mean, I've always been Hansel and Kim. I've always been Aunt Kim. I mean, and now it's just Kim. So yes, thank you for saying that, because time doesn't heal if you don't work at it. You have to work work through grief, and that's one of the things the counseling and the grief share has really helped me with. Yeah.
Even though you didn't have it, Ashley, here's what I'll say, because I think we're getting ready to round up here. He didn't tell you that maybe with his words, but I believe that all of our husbands, whether they went suddenly or whether it was something we were anticipating, at the end of the day, because they loved us the way that they did, they would never want for us to be stuck in grief. Their heart, their desire for us would be to continue out the rest of the days that God is giving us, to not only bring glory to God, but to live a life that is that abundant life that we read about.
That's right.
With the fullness that God has for us in every area of our life. And it's going to look different for each person. Some people never remarry and they're fully content with that. And that's okay. And some people remarry right away. And that's also okay, because we have to do what God is telling us to do without apology, without, explanation, because at the end of the day, God's the one in control.